Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome to the Quartz and Courage Podcast. I'm your host and spiritual sister, Kelsey Indigo, and I believe the crystals can be a gateway to a happier life, but simply collecting them isn't enough to rear real results. Deep inner work, a commitment to overall wellness, and the courage to confront yourself are key. So, if you're ready to go beyond asking, what crystals do I need for love, loss, heartbreak, mental clarity, etc., 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 and start asking yourself real questions like, how can I attract the love I want? Who am I? And what are the things I truly value and want out of life? And how am I actually going to bring them to fruition? Then I'm happy to say you found your safe space. On this podcast, I'm going to take you on a journey through my own personal trials and tribulations, triumphs and setbacks, and the lessons I've learned in between. We're going to address things that are happening in pop culture, things I see on TV, things I read in books and magazines and blogs, and we're going to discuss them and really go deep into how we can work on our self-awareness above all else and really grow into the people we want to become. So sit back, relax, grab your coffee, your popcorn, whatever it is, and let's get into this episode. I'm so glad to have you here. Hey y'all, so we have officially arrived at the first episode. I'm so excited. I am so excited because, y'all, this podcast has been a very long time coming. I have rebranded this podcast now twice. It used to be called the Queen of Cups podcast, and then it turned into the Let's Get Crystal Clear podcast, and now it is Quartz and Courage. And I am very confident that this time it is here to stay, to be consistent, and to be helpful, to be beneficial to y'all. So I really just want to take this time for this first episode just to sort of introduce myself, to talk about the podcast and what the goals are for it, why I created it, and some other things. So I feel like whenever I jump into podcasts, I'm always like, who is this person? What have they done? What do they do? You know, what's their story? So I think it's important that I kind of lay that foundation for y'all. So I'm really just your average woman in my mid-30s. You know, I'm a new mom. And I've gone through, like all of you listening, I've gone through a lot in life, and I just feel the urge to share my story in hopes that it can inspire someone else to pick themselves up from hard times, to be resilient, and to, just keep moving forward, because there's so much in life that can hold us back. And I think it's necessary to not only find people to motivate you and to inspire you, but to really hone in on self-awareness. The entire theme of this podcast really is self-awareness and personal development and spirituality. So what really sort of inspired this podcast was I currently own a crystal shop online. I sell crystals. You guys, if you're watching on YouTube, you can probably see, I have these shelves. We're here in my office. Shelves of crystals. And I started the business in 2021, just as a way to sort of bounce back from what I was going through with the pandemic, like the rest of the world. I had been furloughed from my job, and I was living out in Los Angeles working as an esthetician, and I decided to pack it up and move on back home. I wanted to be around my family. And quite frankly, at that point in LA, everything was shut down, so we couldn't do anything. So moved back to my hometown and haven't looked back. I've since become a mom, and it's exciting. I'm finally buckling down on these goals that I have, especially these goals of being a content creator, of being a podcaster, of being a coach eventually. I say all that to say that so my crystal business is sort of what triggered me wanting to start this podcast, because I have been working in the crystal world for a couple of years. I did step away from the business for a little while. I'll get into that in another episode. But one of the things that I started to notice was that there's a lot of, I feel like I got to be careful with what I say next, but there's a lot of delusion in the crystal world, and a lot of incorrect marketing that's happening, like selling people on false hope, so to speak. And what I mean specifically is if you've ever been into a crystal shop, if you've ever, shopped for crystals online, you're often presented with these meanings that, say what the crystals are for. Like typically a rose quartz is for love, or clear quartz is for amplification of energy. What else? Black tourmaline is to get rid of negative energy. And while that's all, I think, really well and good, I think that the crystal meanings are great to get you started in the crystal world. The longer you work with crystals, what you tend to realize is those meanings really have no meaning. Like they hold no weight when it comes to your self-improvement and your spirituality. Like it all really comes from inside. And me being someone who, sources and sells crystals to the public, I felt like it was dishonest of me to promote these crystal meanings. And I just felt this urge to want to help people even more, want to help my customers even more, because I've had so many people DM me like their problems, saying they got into crystals for X, Y, and Z. They're hoping to fix X, Y, and Z in their life. And they would ask me, what crystal do you recommend for this or that? And, I was at this crossroads where I'm like, okay, I could say anything to this person. I could say, okay, well, if you're having troubles with your relationship with your mom, then I recommend, this ocean jasper, just to make a recommendation and to make the sale. But as someone who is on a, legit personal and spiritual journey, a spiritual growth journey, a personal growth journey, I'm always trying to do the right thing. Like at a certain point in my life, I had to realize that in order to receive the success and the manifestation of things that I want in my life, I need to move with truth, and I need to move with kindness and empathy. And so yeah, I was like, no, this isn't cool. Like I don't want to be recommending crystals and selling these crystals and just giving false information. It just wasn't a good feeling, y'all. It made me feel like crap the couple times I did it. And so what I then found was that I would, instead of doing that, I would have like a deeper conversation with the person. And, I've done that enough times to the point where like now I know what it is, people are looking for in that entry level to crystals, the type of help and guidance that people need. And being someone who has gone through that myself, I was right there too. When I first walked into one of my favorite crystal shops out in LA, Spellbound Sky, I remember like you always find like good energy in crystal shops. And like, if you find a really, really good one, it's like, you don't want to leave. And so Spellbound Sky out there, I remember just going in and feeling the vibes. I was like, wow, this place, it really is something. And, very knowledgeable people in there. The workers there would recommend certain things to me, but they always say, and this is something I appreciate because I think that this is a known thing in the crystal industry. I feel like every crystal business owner understands everything I've just said about the meanings. Because what you will find is they'll say, oh, this one here is for this, or this one here is for that. But they always say you choose them by letting your intuition lead. And I think that following up with that is them, trying to remain true to themselves as like genuine business owners. But it's like we're all just kind of stuck in this like, what is it called? Like this sales pitch of crystals, and it's not cool. So anyway, I remember going out there and it made me like purchase all these crystals. And so I got all these crystals home and I was trying my best to memorize what they were all for. And, putting them up on, like, I started like a little, sacred space, like my little temple or, what do you call? I'm like blanking right now, y'all, on the word. You're like not a shrine, but like I have it right here. I'm looking right at it. Anyway, it'll come to me, y'all. But yeah, I would take the crystals home. I would make my little, ritual space, my sacred space. And then like nothing would sort of happen. I would wait and, maybe I would get a little inkling. I remember I was going through a breakup with an ex and I was like, well, the rose quartz is supposed to help with this. And so I would hold on to the rose quartz, keep it in my pocket, look at it every morning and just sit back and wait for like my ex to text me. This is when I was like in a toxic ass cycle. We'll wait for the ex to text me. And then it like, if it wouldn't happen, or then I would like forget about the crystal. And like 2 weeks later, maybe the ex would text me and I'm like, that crystal worked. Like it worked. And it's BS, y'all. At the end of the day, it is BS. That is not how crystals work. And so, I was there, and when I started realizing that, like, okay, the intentions that I'm setting for these crystals, which a lot of times it was for relationships or money, it wasn't coming to fruition. It wasn't coming to be real to life, and then like the unhappiness sort of set in. And then, what we typically do is we forget about the crystals and we push them away into like a box under the bed, or they just sit on the counter or the bookshelf, like collecting dust. And that's it, until you go through something again and you feel called to like bring them back out, and then you repeat the cycle. And for me, what I realized is, okay, it's not working. Like this isn't working yet. I still feel called to these crystals, no matter what was like going wrong in my life with all of my goals. I still felt called to them. I still loved looking at them. They were still like really beautiful pieces, and I wanted to keep them around. I wanted them to be a part of my life, because at the end of the day, they did make me feel a little bit better, in the moment as they had my attention. So, so I really over the years have just started to, I had to say, forget all the meanings and find my own ways to use them. And so I would do different types of rituals like, like oracle card readings and placing crystals out for the beginning of each month, and I've gone through, making crystal grids, all of these different things. And I think that that's one of the beautiful things about crystals and spirituality, and, sort of finding your way is it's open to your interpretation. You're free to do whatever you want, y'all. And that's what I really want people to understand is you are free to use these things however you want. There are no rules when it comes to, your personal growth through crystals and spirituality. The only goal there is to improve your situation. Typically, that's what we find when we come to crystals. We're all trying to improve something. And so, when I reached a certain point where I was like, okay, I need to really figure out what's going on, because I keep doing the same things and expecting a different result. If you're on YouTube, comment below and let me know what that's the definition of, if you know it. So yeah, I was doing that, and I don't know what possessed me to pick up a like self-help book, but I just remember I got back into read. I've always loved to read, and I never like finish books. It's very rare that I finish a book, but I love books. I love to go to like Barnes and Noble. I love to go to thrift stores and look at books. And, if there's one that like piques my interest, I'll just pick it up, purchase it, and, flip through it. I'm a flipper througher type of reader. So yeah, books are my thing. And over the years, I would always just, skim books and collect them. And my thing is, what I've learned to do is to just pick a random book and, open it up to a random page, and wherever my eyes would land on the page, I would tell myself that was the message I needed to hear for the day. And sometimes, I would land on something that just made no sense, but every once in a while, not even every once in a while, quite often, y'all, quite often when I do this, I land on something that is like spot on. And as I'm doing this, I'll like make sure that I also, pick a crystal at the same time. I'll do an oracle card reading at the same time. So I've developed my own like routines and rituals for my crystals that I think are really special to me. But yeah, my point in saying all this is that I just wanted to create this podcast so that we could have a space to discuss these type of things, because I think that's what the crystal community is kind of missing, is just somewhere where we can go and just hear some real shit, like, yeah, I don't hear anyone talking about this. Like when I opened up my crystal shop, I found like this niche on Instagram for the crystal community, because there's a ton of people selling crystals on Instagram, doing live sales, all of, these accounts. And when I was working on my business, I said, well, how can I stand out and like really set myself apart, so that I can grow my audience and make a sale, So I learned all about how to, make reels really effective, like how to make yourself go viral. And so I use a lot of comedy in my reels, crystal comedy especially. And there was one in particular, or a couple in particular, that I made where I would talk about, one was like talking about citrine. Like if you're watching on YouTube, I have this very beautiful citrine. You see, a lot of y'all will call it heated amethyst. That's fine. Heat treated amethyst. I still refer to it as citrine. I know that it is not a natural citrine, right? Okay. There's the natural citrine, which is really expensive. And then there's heat treated amethyst. Okay. This is by far one of my favorite crystals. I love it so much. Something about it, just when I look at it, it just inspires me to be creative. It inspires me to take action. It's just something about heated amethyst citrine that I love. And I so hate that in the crystal community, it gets a lot of like flack. Like people talk big trash about the heated citrine, and I don't understand it. I'm like, what do y'all have against like, and then I realized, well, typically it's the people who are trying to sell the real stuff, which is fine. But I'm like, isn't there a world that exists where like we don't have to crap on one crystal just to promote another, And then I guess the biggest thing I also see people get mad at is when crystal shops or sellers will say that this is genuine citrine. And a lot of people get upset because they're like, no, it's not. It's heated amethyst. So they just want the sellers and the shops to be honest about it being heated amethyst, which I understand. But I feel like it doesn't make it any less worthy and beautiful and effective with, using it in your spiritual like rituals or what have you. So I made a reel addressing that, and I got so many people commenting just, different opinions. And it was really cool to see how I felt good to like see that other people felt the same way. I'm like, yes, people love citrine as much as I do. But that was another time where I was like, I'm on to something here, like there is this group within the crystal world who thinks the way I think. So let me just go ahead and start this podcast, and not only start, a podcast about crystals, but also just start a podcast about self-improvement. And at the end of the day, self-awareness, because that's the biggest thing I've learned. And if you're watching this, comment down below and let me know what's the biggest thing you've learned with crystals. But mine is crystals have taught me that self-awareness really is key. Like at the end of the day, I feel like crystals help us bring awareness to the things in our lives we want to improve. If it's love, if you got a rose quartz, great. That rose quartz is going to help you maintain your awareness of love and what it is you want. But the flip side is that I feel like crystals and the crystal world and communities, they don't always talk about what it is you need to improve in order to attract that thing into your life. And that is where I think improvement, and the self-improvement world is very important. That's where the two worlds start to collide. So we have this spiritual world where you're working with crystals, and that's all well and great, but you also have to have this self-improvement world along with it. Like the two can't really exist without the other. That's just my belief. So, because when you really start to work on yourself, that's when you're working on your spirit and your spirituality. Like that's where I feel like you will start to find your way to a higher purpose. And no matter what your beliefs are as far as God, you're welcome here. I will say that I am not religious at all, but I do have a very strong relationship with God. I love God. And I feel like God speaks to me in a lot of different ways. And I feel like every action that I've taken in the last, let's say 5 years or so have been to serve God. It's been what has been on my conscience. Saying all that to say that is my belief that crystals basically are there to help you with your self-awareness, which self-awareness falls under self-improvement, and that you cannot work on your spirituality, build a spiritual relationship with God until you, work on your relationship with self. And it all starts with self-awareness, because how do you know what to work on if you're not aware? So that's the basis of this podcast. I'm going to talk about every single topic, I'm going to discuss later on down the line. I hope that in some way or another, it inspires you to improve your self-awareness. And also know that perfection does not exist, right? We can't all be self-aware 100% of the time. It's just impossible. So, and also just remember that the journey of personal growth and spirituality, it's lifelong. You're never going to get it 100% right. And things change all the time. We're always changing as humans. We wouldn't be human if we didn't. And so as you change, your level of self-awareness will change as well. And you'll be required to think in new ways, to move in new ways, and just as you go through life. So keep that in mind as well. So that's why I started this podcast. That's what I hope, and my hope is that in working through becoming more self-aware, you heal from whatever past, heartbreaks or heartaches you're dealing with, no matter where they come from, whether it's love, work, family, money, environment, whatever it is. I am a true believer that the more you focus on your self-awareness and your self-improvement, the more you begin to heal from things in your past that have hurt you. And so I guess that's a good segue to kind of share more of my story and how I got into crystals. So 1 week after I graduated college back in 2010, I got married to the guy who was my teenage sweetheart. 1 week after graduating college, y'all, I got married. And, having just graduated and now in a marriage, I was really scared, but also really excited about, my life. I felt like that's the goal, right? Is to get your degree, to get married, and then to have babies, buy a house, all the things that typically we think of as the American dream. So that was what I was most excited about at that point in my life. And 2 years into that marriage, my ex actually took his own life. And, as hard as that time was, I went through a lot in that relationship, which maybe I'll touch on it somewhere else down the line. I don't want to put it all into this episode, but I just want you guys to know that I come from a history of dealing with some emotional trauma, very traumatic to be in a relationship with someone who takes their life, and shattered dreams for the most part, shattered dreams, and a lot of left wondering why, being left to kind of piece together a puzzle where, a lot of pieces are lost. Like, it's impossible. You know what I mean? That's what it felt like. I was left with this like 1,000-piece puzzle where I had to try and put it all together to figure out what it is I was dealing with, what the bigger picture was. So yeah, it was hard. And at the time I was working as a graphic designer, in DC. And, I figured after about a month off from work, I could go back to work. A month of bereavement, I figured I could go back to work and just try and establish like a normal routine. And did that for a while. About 2 years, I went back to work. I ended up getting a promotion, so I was a design manager. And what I started to realize in that day-to-day routine at the tender age of 24, 25 is I needed something different. Like I really was feeling called to just uproot my life and try something new. And so I ended up moving out to LA to be a makeup artist. I was really into makeup when I was in college. That's when I started my YouTube channel. I was doing like a bunch of hauls, like going to CVS and, Walmart and Target and buying makeup, and then coming back to my YouTube channel and showing all the girlies, all the things I bought. That was like way before YouTube blew up to what it is now, like the beauty industry. So yeah, that's how I started. And so when I was looking for something to do different, I figured like makeup was the next best thing. And so went out to LA to try and make it into the TV and film industry. I wanted to be like a makeup artist to the stars. That was a dream, y'all. I've always had this like desire to be well known and to just be around like well-known people. I don't know if that sounds like lame of me to say, but I'm being honest with y'all. Like, it's just always been a goal of mine to just make a name for myself. I just feel like that's the space I'm supposed to operate in. I don't know if that sounds, full of shit, but it is what it is. So yeah, I went out there and I was so excited and so terrified at the same time, because I had this fresh start. And I was excited about that. I got to focus on something I really loved to do at the time. And, and being out there in LA, you're really like tested to be confident. Like, your confidence is really tested in LA in all aspects. Like, your financial confidence is tested, right? Because it's so expensive to be out there. Your like physical, because you want to like look the part of like being in Hollywood. Your mental is tested every minute of every day, because a lot of times you move out there, you have no one. On top of that, there's so much temptation in LA that can, kind of lead you down the wrong path. What else? Love, confidence, like dating. Oh God, I have so many stories to share with y'all, but, that's tested. Everything. Social, because, you're away from your family, you got to like make new friends. And a lot of times what I found being out there, it's hard to find the good ones out there. A lot of people just want to, be connected with you for whatever you can offer them. And it's understandable. Like, you hear that a lot about LA. It's understandable because everybody is out there trying to pursue something and we got to keep it moving, So it's like, you're either helping or hurting. You like the people you meet are either going to help you or hurt you, period. So, yeah, I moved out there, did that. And that's when I really got into crystals. I was into them prior to, I've always had like little random amethyst rocks here and there, but LA is when I really dove into crystals because mainly I felt like I just needed help with my confidence. I wanted to improve my confidence and to go out and get the things I wanted to, achieve. And so again, I started going to Spellbound Sky, but, what I found living out there is that because I was so focused on trying to make a name for myself and focus on, career, what I learned looking back, hindsight is 2020. I learned that I didn't focus enough on my healing from the trauma. I was trying to just start a new life for myself in hopes that, I would just be okay. And for a while I was, but eventually unhealed trauma catches up to you. You're going to deal with it one way or another, one day or another. Whether you like it or not, whether you want to or not, like trauma is going to resurface. And I look back and I can say that in my trauma from the loss that I suffered, I was dealing with a lot of like needing to save people. My trauma was more like, or my grief sort of morphed into me just wanting to save men in particular, feeling like I could change people and help them to become who they wanted to be. Because in the marriage that I was in, I felt like I failed at helping him to overcome what he was dealing with. And I don't want to, for his own privacy and for, his own legacy and not wanting to tarnish his name, because I do believe at the end of the day, he was doing the best that he could. But still, I went through a lot of emotional trauma with him. I will say that he was dealing with a lot of like physical ailments resulting from some surgery. And he was dealing with an addiction to opioids, prescription opioids. So, what that comes with was very traumatic to me by itself. But then also to lose him the way that it happened was even more, traumatic. And so I became this person who in relationships, I really wanted to save people. And when I say save, I mean like whatever it is they couldn't achieve, I wanted to help them get it. Whatever they wanted to feel like, I wanted to help them get it. Like if a guy was dating, I remember one guy, he was like coming out of like a master's degree program and couldn't like find a job, and he would get like really down about it. And I tried my best. I would be like, let me fix up your resume. Let me like find these jobs for you. Let me just help you do this, and then everything will be great. Doing that, like what I learned and what I know now is that you can't force anybody to do anything. You have to be able to step back and look at the person as a whole and decide on whether or not this person is here to help you or hurt you. Yeah, so that was like my toxic trait that I was like stuck in, was trying to be Captain Save 'em, not realizing that I was stuck in this cycle. So then I would go to the next relationship and it'd be the same thing. Whatever his goals were, I wanted to help him get there. I'm pushing him to get there, even at their resistance, because some of the guys I dated, they didn't want me to be doing all of that. Right. But I would force it because I needed to know that I could help you. And that's what stemmed from the loss, right? I couldn't stop him from doing what he did. I couldn't stop him from taking his own life. I wanted to so badly, but I couldn't. And so it felt like a failure. It felt like I had failed at, not only my marriage, but keeping him alive, which is really deep. It's really, when you deal with something like that, it really changes you on a foundational level. It affects you on a foundational level. And so that is what I mean when I say like there was trauma and grief that I wasn't addressing. I didn't know how to address it. But at the same time, there is nothing about my journey that I would change. I feel like every single step that I took and decision that I made, no matter how good or bad it went, there was always something for me to learn about myself. And once I realized that the goal in all self-improvement and spirituality is to work on your self-awareness, that was when it clicked for me that, okay, girl, you are stuck in this like toxic ass cycle of trying to like save these men. You're stuck in this toxic cycle of sacrificing yourself, putting them before yourself. Like, what is going on? Nobody comes before you. of course your kids, but even at the end of, even with kids, like I'm a new mom, so I'm still learning, so don't come for me, but I feel like I still have to come first. I'm so happy to be a mom. This is what I've always wanted. My son is what I've always wanted. This amazing relationship I have with my partner is what I've always wanted, but I also need time for me. I'm in this space now as a new mom where I've learned that if I am not healthy, if I'm not feeling well, if I am not feeling balanced, then nothing else is going to go right in life. So, it's helped me to advocate for myself, to speak up, to communicate my needs. Yeah, so I went out to LA and I basically learned all of these things about myself. And on top of that, on top of the relationships, I've tried my hand at several different careers. I've been a graphic designer. Which I still am. I've been a makeup artist. I went to school to get my aesthetics license, which is basically like doing facials and such, because a lot of people don't know what aesthetics is. Working in a spa, doing facials, things like that. So I have my aesthetics license. I've done that. And, I've worked for like a small mom and pop beauty store. I've worked on Sunset Boulevard, at this spa, like doing little facials and stuff, some celebrities here and there. So yeah, I've done a lot. I still am licensed, but I'm not practicing right now with aesthetics. Maybe one day I'll get back into it, but I found that the basis of everything I've wanted to do has always been to like solve people's problems. Like, I don't know what it is about that. There's this thing where like, I need a problem to solve. Like, that's what I really love the most. I've gone back to get my master's degree in user experience design, solving problems, basically. Aesthetics, solving skin problems, makeup. Makeup's not really solving problems, but I've realized in doing makeup that a lot of people cover up, skin issues. That's what got me into aesthetics. People want to use makeup to cover up skin problems, and it doesn't really work that way. Like, you got to start from within. So that's my story in a nutshell is, I've gone through traumatic things. And I've gone on this quest to sort of find myself and learn about myself and learn about the things I like. And one thing that has always, been true for me is that I love creating content. Ever since I started my YouTube channel back in 2009, it's just been something I've always wanted to do. And I've always struggled with consistency. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling right now, but I'm just trying to give y'all my backstory. So always struggle with consistency, and just, I'm at a point now in my life where I'm 36. I just became a mom, and I feel like it's now or never. Like, more than ever in my life, I feel like God is calling me to really, like, finally show up for myself, show up for my business, because my business is rooted in what I believe to be God's purpose for my life. And I just want to help as many people as I can, in whatever way that I can. So this podcast is my version of being true to, what I believe is my purpose, and also my passion, which is creating content. So yeah. The other thing I wanted to touch on as a way to, preface and lay a foundation for this podcast is where, this kind of fits in the bigger scheme of things. Like, I'm going to talk a lot about self-awareness and self-improvement and spirituality, but the bigger picture I want, my audience to always maintain is that any form of healing and wellness is really about the entire person that you are. And what I mean by that is, like, it's holistic. So if you search holistic wellness, you will understand what I'm talking about. But you can't really heal or improve one part of yourself without focusing on yourself as a whole. So, when we talk about all these improvements in spirituality, all of that falls under wellness. And when you look up wellness or holistic wellness, you see the different areas that fall under that, which are, the social aspect, it's your mental aspect, it's the financial, it's the emotional, it's the physical. So I am a believer that you have to find a way to balance all of these things. Like, you can't be at a point in your life where you're saying, I don't give a crap about, my finances. I just want to focus on like my mental health, because finances play a huge part in your mental health, right? And our mental health plays a huge part in our finances. If you're a business owner, how well you operate that business and how, well, you're disciplined at being successful. Like, all of it is, connected. And this is something that took me years to realize as well. And it's something I'm still, coming into. Like, I probably just like understood it when I had my son 7 months ago. Like, you just can't ignore any part of who you are as a person and the things that make us human. So yeah, it's the holistic wellness, which encompasses all the things I said: the mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, social as well, occupational, which is your career, your job, right? Like that's a part of it, because especially the times we're living in, like, loving what you do is so hard, I think, to come by. Like, we're living in times now where like you have to have a side hustle from your day job just to have some happiness, I think, in the work you do. And financial is the other one. So when we talk about like mental wellness, it's how you think, right? It's being able to think critically. It's being able to make good decisions. It's your ability to learn and grow. It's, do you have a fixed mindset or do you have a growth mindset? Which I'll probably touch on that in another podcast, because that's a whole episode. And then it's your emotional. It's how you respond to stress. It's how you respond to your environment. It's how you respond to love, because, you can be someone who's like mentally healthy, but if you're not emotionally healthy, how can you manifest like a relationship that you really want or a friendship that you really want if you don't know how to, respond in a loving situation? You know what I mean? If you don't know how to respond to love, if you don't know how to give love. So that's what I mean. Like, it's all connected. And then there's your spiritual side, which is how you feel about your existence, how you are connected to something bigger. Like, are you connected to anything bigger? It's your meaningful pursuits. So the things that you're going after, how are they filling your cup? How do they make you feel at the end of the day? And your passions, because your passions really pour into your spirit, like I was saying earlier. And then your physical. So it's your energy, it's, your movement and flexibility, it's your strength, it's your agility, like so much, your sleep and your nutrition. So much goes into the physical. And that for me is where I feel like I'm really trying to balance that out. Like, my physical wellness has been something that I've not shown up for on a consistent basis. And I'm really, starting to see how that affects me. Like, for instance, my weight has always fluctuated throughout my life, and especially throughout adulthood. I've had moments in time where I would go to the gym and like kill it, like doing two-a-days at the gym, lifting weights, doing my cardio, and I was like in the best shape of my life. And then I've gone through times where I was like super depressed, emotional eating, comfort eating, and I blew up to, the highest weight I'd ever been at. And so now I'm at this point in my life where, like I said, I just had a baby 7 months ago, and my body is changing. It was changing when I got pregnant, and now it's changing even more now that I'm, a mom, and not in a way that I'm proud of. So my physical health is another thing I'm balancing, but I'm also realizing that it's not just about working out, right? It's not just about, going to the gym and getting enough sleep. For me, it's also about movement. Like, because I've had my child, I guess I would be considered an older mom because I'm in my mid 30s. one of the priorities for me down the line is making sure that I'm as physically fit as I can be for my son's sake. I want to be able to be around and move around with him as he, gets older and goes through those toddler stages and those teen stages. I just want to be able to keep up. So yeah, it's just, being here for my son. I think that is my motivation at this point in my life. And doing it consistently, because I'm also at a point in my life, y'all, where I'm tired of having this goal of being fit, of having physical wellness, be consistent in my life. Like, I'm tired of it. I don't want to keep making excuses. I just want to do it. Like, I'm at the point where I don't even want to think about it anymore. I just want to take action. So that's one of my personal goals. I just went on a rabbit hole with that. But yeah, and I want to plug also my YouTube channel, my vlog YouTube channel, because as much as I love, this whole idea of podcasting, I also love to vlog and just document my journey on things. And I'm trying my best to show up consistently with that as well. So follow me on YouTube. It's Kelsey Indigo Vlogs. So yeah, get on over there and show some support. Or not, whatever. If you just want to listen to my podcast, that's fine too. So yeah, it's that. And then the other buckets of wellness, social. So your sense of belonging, your sense of community and support, and you're opening yourself up to new experiences and people. That's, really important with the times we're living in. I feel like with COVID, a lot of us, I don't even want to say since COVID, but since COVID and even before, a term I hear a lot is like people saying they're introverts. Like, I would also refer to myself as an introvert. But when I really thought about it, I was like, I'm an introvert, but I do, I'm calling myself an introvert, but I also love people. I love getting to know people. It's just, I'm nervous a lot. Like, I have what I think is like social anxiety in a lot of situations. And also I'm more aware now that I'm older of like my social battery, like I'm someone who I can't be around like big groups for a long time because I'm such an observant person. Whenever I'm in like a big group or at like a family function or a party or whatever, I'm constantly like observing other people and trying to like remain aware of like what's going on. And it's hard for me to sort of shut that off and just kind of, be present with whoever I'm talking to or whatever I'm doing at that moment. So, I need a lot of time to like decompress after events. Like, sometimes I feel like I come home and I'm just like drained after like spending a day at like a family function or whatever. I'll feel like drained. And I just need like time to myself to sort of recharge. So, just being aware of that and making sure that I'm still showing up, because it's very important that we have a sense of community. Me doing this podcast, in a sense, is me, addressing my social wellness, because it is important for me to not only be social, but to have that sense of like community from people who think like me. Because I find that a lot of times, like in my relationships with just any human being, friendship, family, whatever, I sometimes have like a differing point of view, a differing opinion. And while, the people who are truly in my lives, they love and accept me for who I am, I also have this urge to want to like find like-minded people who think like I think, because I think it's, that's a level of support I want and could really help me to feel more socially well. So, yeah, social wellness, and then occupational wellness. So it's what I was saying earlier, finding joy in like your work, your career. And, we're living in times where it's a lot to just be alive. It costs a lot to be alive. And sometimes we have to take jobs that we don't necessarily love, but pay the bills. So it's, how are we balancing that, with everything else we have going on? How are we like carving out time to make sure that we're loving, finding bits of our work that we can truly love, whether it's a side hustle or changing your perspective of your job, to really like focus on things that matter to you. So for instance, if you're working as, I don't know, like an engineer or something, but you love to help people, like, or you feel like you're an empathetic person and empathy is what really like makes you happy, then how are you showing up at work? What type of conversations are you having at work? Like all these different things, it's a lot. Feeling like you have opportunities to grow and develop within your career. That's another thing that falls under like the occupational wellness, because I think it's hard, in our careers. Like some people are good at like being a mover, a mover and shaker in their industry. They can bounce around from company to company and feel, like they're seeing the success that they want. But other people, when I was a manager, I would see this a lot. Like some people are in their same like role with the same company for like, a decade. And they don't feel like they have any growth opportunities. So it's like really addressing that, like addressing internally what makes you stay committed to a company that doesn't give you the opportunities that you want. Are you even aware of what opportunities you want? Because sometimes it might not even be, switching to a new role, but like maybe switching a project, like working on a different project that's going to test you in new ways and stretch you in new ways. So yeah. And then there's financial, which is, control over your income, your expenses, your spending, your ability to handle like financial emergencies. Like, do you have enough saved up in case of an emergency? The freedom to buy things that really spark joy for you, and making sure that you're not over purchasing, overspending on things that spark joy, and really questioning, do they spark joy? Because one of the things I got caught up in a lot, y'all, especially when I was living in LA and like trying to find my people and all this stuff, I was like really lonely at certain points out there. And so I would just go and shop. Like I focused on getting my apartment to look like really nice and aesthetic. And I spent a lot of money on like home decor. And looking back, I'm like, dang, that was money I could have been like saving and putting into like an investment fund. Like I didn't need to be out there buying like a different rug or a different vase or, a new set of sheets here and there. Like a lot of it is just like unnecessary spending. But at the same time, if it makes you happy, I think it's important to find that balance. You know what I mean? And then your ability to like plan vacations too is another like financial thing. So, because we all need to get away, right? Like we all need vacations at one point or another. So it's how well are you managing your finances to make sure you're saving for that. So yeah, that's the gist of it. Like I'm here, right, in this podcast space speaking on crystals and self-awareness and personal development, because that is my like little area of, expertise. I feel like that's what I can speak on confidently and comfortably, and help people to grow in that area. But I want my audience to also be aware that that is just a small piece in a bigger picture and a bigger scheme of like who you are as a person and what it means to be truly well. So, as you are listening to my podcast and being a part of my community, don't lose sight of those things because they matter. So, I encourage everyone to seek out information. That is the best thing you can do for yourself to, be well, is to go and read books, to read blogs, to watch YouTube videos, of different, all these different areas of life of how to improve them. Because just like I'm here speaking to you guys, about crystals and spirituality, there are other creators out there who are making content about all these different aspects of life. I think that's one of the biggest things I love about the creator community, is that you can pretty much find anyone who talks like on someone who speaks on something, whatever subject makes you happy. Like if collecting crickets is something that sparks joy and like you spend too much money on like cricket cages, there's probably someone out there you can find who will relate to you. So start branching out in the type of media that you consume. Challenge yourself to listen to people who you typically wouldn't listen to. I think we a lot of times get stuck in only consuming content that we relate to. But oftentimes what you find is when you step out of that box and you give someone else a try, or give some other like show or educational program or YouTube video or whatever, give something else a try that you find you wouldn't normally tune in, like just try it and see what you learn. Because that's another thing. I feel like people come in all shapes, sizes, colors. We're very diverse species. And the beauty in that is that there's so much to learn. There is always something to learn from each other. So yeah, that's my homework, y'all, I guess, for you guys. Maybe I need to like have little homework sections with these podcasts. I challenge you to go out and, simply like YouTube search something random that you've been wanting to improve and see what you find. And, click on a video and actually give that person a shot. Don't click off of it. Like, just take a listen and see if it changes your perspective or inspires something in you to like take action or change, because that's all we really want at the end of the day. So I think that's it for this episode, y'all. I've talked your ear off and, ears. Yeah, I'm thankful for you guys if you made it this far. Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure on my YouTube to give me a little thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And if you are on audio listening to this podcast on any little audio streaming app, please leave me a little review. I'd really appreciate it, what you think about this first episode. I'm excited, y'all, to take y'all on this journey. I think that this podcast is going to be very transformational, not just for you, but for me as well. I'm just excited because this is just what I've always wanted to do. I feel like this is my space. This is where I belong. I have a sense of belonging, when it comes to podcasting. So I hope that you guys will give me a chance and stick around and subscribe and follow. And yeah, I look forward to talking to y'all in the next episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, y'all, you have everything you need to go out into this world and win. You just got to go out and get it. All right, y'all, be easy till the next one. Take care.